Tim Dennis to kick off our guest speaker section for the Summer Institute. He is the director of the UCLA Library Data Science Center, and we've just talked about he actually has a lot of experience teaching the kind of stuff that we're trying to convey here today. So he's actually much more qualified in everything that we talked about today probably than we are. We also talked about that he's also been teaching on some of the stuff with census data. So the people that were working with census data today, if you had any questions about this, he might be the guy to help you out, or to tell you a little bit about Tiny Census, which is an R package to interface with the census data. And we actually gave him free reins to talk about whatever he wants. So I'm really interested also to find out what we'll hear about today.
I didn't know about the free rein.
Free rein to a degree. So
yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate that.
Everybody give him a hand. And thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm really talking about data sources for computational social science. My background, a little bit about me, I'm a data librarian by profession, really. And I run the Data Science Center, which is a new endeavor in the library. And we really try to help researchers with research that involves computation, data-intensive research, so things that you're kind of doing. So we help people write R scripts, scrape the web with Python, all the kind of things. We're buying this deep learning machine now, a bunch of GPUs, and we're going to get some Tensor laptops that we can teach kind of machine learning stuff. And we partner with folks in the library who do have machine learning backgrounds and skills to provide consulting. I'm also a carpentries instructor. Who's heard of the carpentries? There's one person. So it's an international organization of volunteer instructors who is geared to teaching early career researchers computational and data skills, coding and data. So we're a member with the carpentries here, and we're going to be ramping up some. They're really delivered as boot camp 2-day workshops. Typically learn R, Python, programming language, Bash, Shell, Git, version control, and some are geared to an actual domain, like there's a data carpentry for social science, and some are geared to more like how do I code better, or what is coding. I found out I need to code, I've been panicking, and then I've been crawling lynda.com, it's not what I really want. I'm going to do this in person. So that's the kind of thing. And the nice thing about having our data science center is that if you're on campus, if you're not, if you're from another school, you can contact me because we have a pretty good kind of relationship through California, so I could probably find people that can help you on your campus. And if you're on campus, you can come and get support for learning these tools as well. We can get you started. I'm also, anybody heard of BIPS? Berkeley Institute for Transparency and Social Science. I'm a catalyst, and that's a group that's really concerned with transparency in research, especially in social science and reproducible research, replication, a lot of topics around there. So we kind of hopefully provide some. They had a kind of a similar workshop series for a week here at UCLA, and I taught a little bit of that. But yeah, they have. I can't even. It's called. I always want to say it's R2D2, but it's reproducible R2. RT2. Yeah, so they all look for a workshop on that to teach you how the kind of the concepts around reproducibility and some of the problems with the crisis of replication and some of the solutions to that. All right. So I'm really going to go over some sources for data, and you've already dealt with some of them I'm going to talk about. So it might be redundant, so forgive me. And then we're going to do some hands-on with this tool called tags. I didn't want to jump into teaching R. I know you're probably going to be doing some of that as part of this workshop. But this is more of a in-browser thing for aggregating a bunch of tweets based on the hashtag. So it worked with Google Sheets. I think it's kind of fun, especially when you're in exploratory phase. Before you, I have to script this. You can get a first flash with a bunch of data in the spreadsheet. Now I'm going to talk about Twitter data. I know that kind of the most, because it seems like we get the most questions, like people come in and need to scrape some Twitter data or get access to it. It's a very popular voice for people that are beginning to look for social media data. So the questions, and I kind of got this from the source and the GW site. This is like the branching that happens when you deal with Twitter data. Do you need historical data? So anything older than 7 days. The reason is that the public API for Twitter only really covers 7 days. Or if you do need it, so if you do need historical data, it leads you a different path. And it could mean you have to pay for something, or to get access to that historical data. Second question: if you do need historical data, do you have funding to acquire Twitter data? So Twitter now has a kind of enterprise API that charges by month by the number of queries, and that is part of their pricing model. So do you need to share the data? Are you interested in being this reproducible data set that you can share with others? That would also have implications, because part of the terms of service of Twitter is you can't share the tweets as you scrape them. You have to take out all the identifying kind of information of who it is and the content of the tweet. So you can't share the tweets as you see them on the website. And then what are your technical skills? So are you going to be using Python, R, or you don't want to learn that? These are all things that kind of lead you down different paths with Twitter data. So if the yes is you don't need historical data, you can retrieve from the Twitter public API. Gives you from today back 7 days. If you do need to have kind of historical data, but you don't want to pay for it, there are these data sets that have been compiled, and they're called Twitter Id Datasets. Who's heard of that? So they basically, I've heard the term deflate them. So you pull out all the content, and you just leave an ID for the tweet. The nice thing about that, you can query the API with that ID and get historical tweets, right? So you can break that 7 days in. But all it requires somebody who's done this, who has actually constructed a Twitter ID data set and has posted it somewhere. And there's a listing and catalog of those. I'll show you in a second. The other option is you purchase the Twitter data, you purchase access through Twitter, and once again, it's per month, by the number of queries for the historical data. The last one is there's service providers for this that are contracted with Twitter. There's not that many left. That Crimson Hexagon, which is now something called Brand Watch, gives you an idea what they really are marketing to. Really, it's like a customer research marketing tool. But with Crimson Hexagon, when I worked at UCSD, we had a subscription to Crimson Hexagon. It's not cheap. People were looking for it. They were talking about getting a subscription here, and I think it's like $20K a year it was, something like just pretty expensive. But with Crimson Hexagon, you can compile a really large corpora of tweets. They have limits per day, but you do queries, you can do keyword queries and all kinds of stuff, and extract it as JSON and build up a big data set. I knew people that had multiple students who get accounts, and they work in concert to really create a large data set. You can work on it. So those are kind of your options. If you do want to go the public API route, you might have heard some of these tools, but Tweepy is a Python module that lets you interact with the API. And usually the workflow here is you install Tweepy or our Tweet is a package, and then you have to have your API key and token, your secret and password, and you put those in your script, and then you authenticate with the service, and then you can query it and bring back data as some kind of data object in Python or R. Fork is kind of cool. It's like a Python tool, but it's for the command line. So you install it like a Python module. If you've heard of this, who's heard of pip? It's like the Python way to install modules. which are third-party tools that people build in Python and you can use. So Torque is something you do in command, and you basically say get tweets, you have your API key, and it queries for you and brings it back. And the nice thing being a command line, you can use other scripting tools against it. And then we'll come back to this at the end, and we'll work through tags for Google Spreadsheet. But it lets you use a familiar kind of thing, right? A Google Sheet, we all use them. And it adds like a menu called tags, and you can set up you can authenticate with Twitter. It sets up a sheet like a form, and you put in what tag you want to look for, and as far as your hashtag, and you run it, and it builds a second spreadsheet, like another sheet at the bottom of those. There's limits to how much you can do, but you can run multiple of them. Okay, so this is kind of defining existing Twitter data sets. These are the Twitter. These are people that have compiled these Twitter ID data sets for you. So Harvard GWU compiled one on the 2016 US presidential election tweet IDs. So these have none of this has been deflated. It has none of the content in it. It just has the identifier for each tweet. So the idea here is basically a big text file with all the identifiers. And this is a huge data set. It's looking at all the candidates. There were 280 million tweets. You download it, and then you'd have to use a tool to inflate it with the content, right? That's the workflow. One tool that works with that is that Torque thing you can use, but there's another tool that's like a desktop client that we can use called Reflect. No, I'll come to it. I already forgot. Anyway, this is one data set somebody has compiled for us, and then if you're familiar with Dataverse, just put it up in a data archive. So we can download this and use another tool to reconstitute all the tweets and do research with it. Or play with it. Does that make sense? All right, so another one is there's a 40 million tweet IDs from about Black Lives Matter. So this is another data set we can download. This is 259 megabytes. And then we'd have to inflate that with a tool. And the one that is like a catalog for these things is this DocNow. And DocNow builds the tool the desktop tool that will inflate it for you. I downloaded the Nipsey Hussle one, and that's about the death of Nipsey Hussle and the funeral. So it captured all the hashtags around that. And so I started to inflate it. I thought I was going to have it inflated by the time I got here, because I started at 6 this morning, and it hasn't finished. So this thing, so there's rate limits to these APIs, right? So when you do this thing, you have to let it run, and it will build up the file for you. But you can see there's one on climate change, and they have description. They'll tell you the keywords that they look for. So there's a bunch of stuff here, and it's kind of cool actually, because it might not fit your specific research agenda, but it could be a kind of cool way to play and learn how to work with a large report, right? And go back. So this is the hydrate. Why didn't I think of that? Dehydrate. I didn't think hydrate. Hydrate is a tool that the GWU's group created. And you can see, this is not live, but I do have it up live. And essentially, once you download that file that has all these deflated tweets, or you open it up in this tool, and it will go through in the background. It's hitting that Twitter public API. and it's bringing back the content into that file. It's going to basically create a big JSON file. Have y'all talked about JSON? It's a format that a lot of APIs will give you as key value. So it has all the information of the tweets, and there'll be tons of them.
So it can bring back even if it's not the 7 days.
Yeah, so if you have the identifier, you can do that. Any questions? And to show you, I do have it here. And I haven't gone even more. So on my slide, I was at 120, 1 million or whatever. So it's still working.
So if I understand you correctly, these data sets will give you the Twitter IDs because they can't just give you the tweets because that doesn't
It's against their terms
of
of
service.
service.
But they'll give you the Twitter IDs and the ways to get the tweets.
Yes.
So this is all just a legal workaround, right?
Yeah, it's a fully legal way.
Right.
Not illegal. I don't think it's legal. GW would be.
Right. It's all legal work.
It's a legal work.
Right. But the only reason why this whole rehydration thing has to exist is because of terms of service.
Yes. But they recognized, I think at some point they recognized they wanted to provide a way for you to share this. Because, if you're doing research on Twitter data but you can't share any of it, and if you're concerned with reproducibility, it's kind of problematic. And I think there's also, I know ICPSR has a person who's working on a lot of social media data. And so there's a real interest in archival communities for providing a way to archive your research on this, right? So then somebody, the idea is you download it after you publish your article, there's DOI for your data, go to it, download it, somebody can reconstitute the data. They have to sit there and wait for a while, and then be able to run your code. All right, so let me go back. So I don't really, the other, for other social media properties, Facebook, they have a graph API. I haven't worked with this much yet. Has anybody worked with the graph API? Yeah?
Just a little bit.
Is it? It's what, just a little bit?
Just a little bit,
What was
yeah.
your experience with it?
I don't remember.
Oh yeah, it's an API, and you can imagine the levels of permissions in Facebook. So what you get out of this is can be limiting. I saw some of the information on building bots. I would assume you would use the Graph API if you're going to do some surveying and stuff. It seemed pretty interesting. Have you all covered it? Did you?
Not yet.
Not yet. So that could be used for this. There's an Instagram Graph API as well, which is kind of unfortunate because there was an R package for Insta-R that when they moved the API over to Graph API, it broke it. So I haven't seen a good R package for this Instagram API, Graph API. So yeah, Facebook changed APIs in the last year or so. And they went to this Graph API model. And I hate when it breaks packages. It breaks my heart. So that's one thing to learn from APIs is that they're always changing them, right? I mean, the big companies change the terms of service. They'll change. Like I taught a class with using the New York Times API, the search API, and I taught it 1 month. And then a month later, I taught it again, and something broke, and they changed the rate limit that you would hit. And I had a for loop going through and hitting that API, and within a month, it broke my code. And I froze. Fortunately, somebody in the audience was a really good coder, and he figured it out. And he said, oh, you have to put a delay in your code so you're not exhausting the rate limit. So these things will change on you a lot if you're dealing with it. Just something to be aware of. Did you?
I was wondering, because you mentioned that they have a Graph API, so I'm not entirely sure if this is actually a kind of API, like a particular API, or is this, what does the Graph and Graph API mean? Do you know? Or is this just some Facebook lingo?
They consider their whole social network a graph.
Oh,
I mean, that's what they consider it.
Okay.
So I think it's just from that, but I could be wrong. It could have graph aspects that you can pull out of it and put in a. I don't know. I had the same thing because there's graph databases, right? Yeah. But really, this is you can get some of these basic posts that people post and some of the images and videos. All right. So for others, like for other social media properties, I would say always look for an API. You know, you kind of that's like probably your easiest way in. Sometimes companies will provide, you know, like the example with Twitter, you can buy data from them. You know, I've contacted like Airbnb once to see if we could buy their data. You know, so there's all these different ways that you can get at the data. Sometimes people would extract the data and post it. You know. Sometimes that's illegal and it won't last long. You know, so there's all these different methods that you can look for data, right, around these companies. So text. So often, you know, text, we were just talking about all these social media data. You can build large corpora, obviously, from Twitter, Facebook, you know, other social media sites. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about the library, and this is changing. Did I? Yeah. This is changing rapidly right now. So 5 years ago, the library world, we'd buy a lot of like textual data, tons of articles. LexisNexis, ProQuest, all these different vendors sell us, you know, access to articles. But for a long time, it was forbidden for us to script to it. I mean, I would have people, when I worked at Berkeley, people come in, I'm writing this script to go against LexisNexis. I go, okay, I can't divert my eyes, you know, because, I mean, I would help them with their code, because it's like I just tell them, look, terms of service says you cannot do this. But literally, it was written in, you cannot do this. And then, like 7 years ago, I think it's like when I was at UCSD, the vendors were starting, these publishers were starting to catch on that this is a value, right? Access to research, access to bulk data, or being able to code to an API is something you want, you know, researchers want. So they started to try to like really bump up the prices for that, right? Like I wish I could remember that exact cost. It was like crazy. So I think they're getting a little more realistic now. And if you're in the UC system, we're lucky because we have the CDL, which is the California Digital Library, and they do a lot of negotiation for the system. So we can use kind of our buying power to leverage that. And I know that the people that license and negotiate the content around all this stuff, this is a big thing. Text data mining is a big component of what they try to look for. So they're trying to push these publishers to provide more relaxed, extensive, either both in a bulk way, like so you get some bulk way you can download a bunch of text data, or via an API. So I know we're negotiating with LexisNexis right now, and that will be part of what we get out. So I think it's pretty clear. It's not finished yet, but that's going to be something that you'll be able to have access to all those articles. So the people, I mean, it's still not there yet, because I literally helped some student with a scraper for Reuters news site that I know was breaking the terms of service, but I mean, it's like, okay, you know you're breaking the terms of service. So there's still like a lot of gaps in this that sometimes you'll need to write a web scraper. Just be aware of what, you know, the legitimacy of that or not, or be, think about it through. But there's going to be more and more data APIs coming through the library to provide you access to the text data we purchase, which is only right? Like it's text. You know? So we do have some, and there's a link, and it doesn't show, but I'll send you the links to the slides. But there are a list of some of the vendors, the publishers who do provide access. This is like, they have a lot of primary source data, Matthew, Archive Explorer. So that's you can do text data mining in that. So this is just a small list. and there's probably more that are not on this list. And I'll provide a link, but it's all through the UCLA library. So if you're not from UCLA, look at your own school. They probably might have access to these resources. And sometimes they might not even know they have access to the APIs. So the way you usually have to do this, you go to the website. You often now create your own account on like a publisher like LexisNexis. And then inside of that, they'll have some information on how you get access to an API or a bulk extraction tool. So that's what you typically do when you try to get access to text. And if you have questions, you come. I mean, the big thing is, if any of this stuff, if you have questions, you can come to me, or if you need a contact in your school, I can help you. Because this is what library is supposed to do: provide access to this. Another big one is HathiTrust. Has anybody heard of HathiTrust? Yeah, cool. So all the remember the Google Book Project? It's still going on. They're scanning all these books. Hathi is the consortium of well, UC is part of it, but University of Michigan, Illinois, all these groups that got together that were part of the Google Book Project, and they wanted to create a way for researchers to access those, especially the things that were out of copyright, so the public domain data that was being scanned. So this is like the research arm of how to get access to it. And it's kind of cool. They've done some like derived data sets where you have extracted features, which includes the metadata and like n-grams or like word counts type stuff. And they've also, you can go and log in, get an account, and you can spin up a little virtual machine for yourself, like a little container, which is like your own little, because this data is so big, it's hard to download it. You're going to want to do the computing inside their environment, right? So you can get your own little compute environment, and it will install like a Python text mining. You can install other tools, and you do the work inside of their kind of computer environment. So that's like kind of cool, because this is like lots and lots of textual data and like hundreds of languages. And so there's all the books that have been scanned by Google, not all of them, but the ones that are where the copyright allows are available through this interface.
So do you know, is it maybe like from the 1990s and later, or like earlier, or like what's where are we right now with expired copyright?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it was 70 plus 15 years or something. I mean, but it's, I think some of the things, they have more recent books, but I don't know how that would fall out of there. Things called orphan works, right?
Yeah.
That people have given up the copyright. Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that. But, another one, kind of, this is based on that Google Book Scanning project, and we've heard the n-gram viewer, which is, n is basically going to be a number. Basically, it means a little phrase, like it could be one word, it could be two words that are adjacent, three. And you can go to this viewer and basically put in to see word frequency count trends across the Google Book project. But down the bottom of this page, and I provide a link here, you can download your data, right? And you can do your own kind of computation on their data that informs this n-gram graph, which is arbitrarily large. So it can be really huge. So the n-gram basically is like the number of words that are near each other, and you can do some kind of frequency analysis. All right, so last bit, administrative data. So administrative data are really collected by governments or other organizations, and they're really for their own internal purposes. They weren't really collected to produce like a data product. Like say, if you do a survey, it's for statistical reasons and you want to publish it. So this is really things internal to an organization or company or government that, you know, they really are published. And in the government, the canonical ones, and this is ones we work with for a long time, you know, you have tax data, death and birth data, crime data, immigration data, and there's many more that are really kept, you know, the number of people across the border, or your taxes, all this stuff is kind of administrative data, and often hard to get at, right? You could get aggregates that are published, mostly all these, but kind of raw data is hard to get at. Now the IRS now has a research program that you can apply to, and it'll give you access to much more larger volumes of tax data. So it's like a kind of almost IRB process where you apply and get part of it. So there's work to try to open that up more, because if you want to study income, you know, tax data is really what you want. The death and birth data, ICPSR gets it from an agency and then they curate it, which makes it nice, but you can get it also, you know, from the agency itself. We used to buy them with CD-ROM. Crime data usually comes from FBI, it's reported. You know, it's reported from the lower level U.S., in the U.S. at least, like your police division, sheriffs, and they report up to the FBI, and then it gets reported in FBI stats. And immigration data is also published, but the raw data, I don't know if you can really get access to. Yeah.
So I looked at some FBI data, and it was like yearly, because typically that's what, when you read the newspaper, remember yearly.
Yeah, they report it up. They
But do they have monthly or weekly or daily? And if you wanted that, I wrote the FBI once and asked them, and they just pointed back to the website. So are there other methods of getting more granular data?
There might be like you can. So ICPSR has a whole section here. Everybody know what ICPR is? Yeah. So it's like basically it's a social science data archive, and they work with these agencies to publish and curate the data. So they have a whole crime section. I think you might get lower than year, but I could be wrong. You could look at California. You know, state agencies also collect the data if you're interested in just California. But the so some of this data is hard to get at, and I don't really have any. The tax data, you would have to write a proposal, and they do a yearly call. And if they choose you, you get access to the raw data.
This is the IRS, or
Yeah, the IRS. There's a I'll include the link. I should have done that. But and you know, that's like something they do now, and there's people working trying to open that up even more, which would be great. You know, if people have more access to it. But it'd be kind of like having, you know, whatever the census runs a research center. You know, you'd have to go to some, you have to apply to get into some, you know, IRB and get in some kind of cold room situation.
yeah.
So in businesses, and this is like the, I mean, I see this as the kind of equivalent with administrative data. So all these companies have this data, and I have people come and ask me, oh, can we buy Zillow data? No, I need more. You know, like so Zillow does publish some of their data. You'll see some of their data in their data vendor called Data Planet we subscribe to. And you get it down to the zip code, or below zip code, you're not going to get it, right? Unless you go to them. They have an API also, but it doesn't give you the granularity. But they'll sell it to you, you know, for a cost. Right? Third-party sites, you know, like this site called Inside Airbnb has put up data from some cities. I don't actually know how they got it, but I think they're scraping it in some way. But Airbnb will also sell you data. I had some colleagues, I won't mention which you see, bought some Airbnb data, and then they put it up on a website in a library, and it was like protected by a password, but then the problem was, if you think about Airbnb data, all the pictures, I mean, it's kind of, you can identify, you know, who is what by the address, and so they had to take it down because of you know, it's personally identifying kind of information. We gotta have that thing out.
So I don't know when it was, but some years ago there was a political science student here who wanted to link real estate data from what we got, like running a bunch of computers in the poli-sci department. He wanted to link to like voting records. He managed to get a lot of the data, and I think like he got some sort of cease and desist letter. And I'm wondering, like, I don't know if they like, oh, there's a funny story, but I don't remember all the details. But basically, when data like that acquired, does it come to the library, or does it become public use, or?
It all depends. So that's like, I would definitely encourage you to go to the library and try to, because what the library can do is they have licensing people. And so yeah, we purchase data sets with departments, like you could do, you know, collaboratively. And the nice thing about that, if you negotiate with whoever's selling the data to make it more open to at least the UCLA, whatever community you're part of, the academic community, then more people can benefit from it. But it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes departments or researchers will write that cost into the grant, and it will be, you know, it will not be for anybody else, right? So it would just be for that grant, for the research at that time. So it depends on how you negotiate it, how you kind of get it purchased.
Westwood Boulevard, Los Angeles.
I guess what I'm thinking of is, like, if people manage to scrape, we're putting all this work into, like, scraping all this data, and, you know, I mean, in some circumstances, the company, like, doesn't want it, but it's just kind of, like, out of their hands anyway, and then there's, like, sometimes there are legal issues arise, but, like, in this sort of circumstance, like, a lot of people can put, for example, data at ICDSR or here at CCPR, kind of put it in the data repository or upload it to Dataverse or whatever. So is there a system by which the library agrees and like takes in the data if people say, I want to put this in the public domain?
There's not a formal system. Though in the fall, we're releasing UCLA Dataverse out of the library and my unit. So, and Dataverse is nice because you can restrict, you know, access to data. So based on membership in this community, but there's not a formal way, you know, to do what you're saying, basically, which would be good. I think the library hopefully will get better at buying data. Like it's not part of what we're built for because it is it's different than buying books, right? You know, there's a whole different licensing regime and everything. So some other things just real quickly. So that sometimes people post data sets. I mean, Uber had a New York City data set in 2014. It's posted on the open municipal government data site. And then really, yeah, contact somebody like me, because there could be money, you know, if you have to buy this stuff. Sometimes we can wrestle up money. And, you know, like you were saying, I'm sorry, what's your name? Jake. You know, if you work with a library, maybe you can broaden the access to other colleagues, so it could benefit, you know, larger community. Okay, so that's any questions about so far? Because I wanted to leave some time to have fun with Twitter data. Are you all tired? You ready for the happy hour? Where's the happy hour?
Is there happy?
No, not today. No happy hour. Go home and code. All right. So, okay. Tags again is a plugin for Google Sheets that lets you build a Twitter data set via the public API. So, last 7 days, you know, there's some limits on how many tweets you can get. So let me do this. And here, these are the steps. So if you go to this site, and the link to the slides are here. Is that the slides? think that will. All right. So go here. Basically, this tags.hawksy.info will get you to where we need to go to use this. To this page. And then you say get tags. Then you're here. You choose which version and follow along. I'm going to do 6.1. It seemed to work earlier. And then you get this thing where you make a copy of the spreadsheet that has, all the tags kind of coded in it. Make a copy of that. Switch back.
What's the name of the website again?
I just send it on the Slack.
Okay.
Yeah, tags.hawksy.info. So from here, and this is a little, just going to make this. Here, you see after it loads, it gives you this tag menu. That's what it adds with the plugin. So the one thing you need to do is set up Twitter access. The first one. It says authorization required. I'm going to say which account. I'm going to use this account. And then you'll get this problem. Oh, what happened? Yeah, so you can get around this by hitting that advanced. This app isn't verified. That's okay. It works. And you say open advanced, go to tags, volume. Everybody here? Not there yet? Let me know when you're here. So who's gotten to this? You might not get this. So we'll wait a little bit.
So the access that it needs is your Gmail account, so it doesn't need Twitter.
You need Twitter. Do you have a Twitter account? All right. So yeah, you need a Twitter account. I'm sorry. Because then after we get to this point, it's going to kick us to Twitter, and we authenticate in Twitter, and come back to the spreadsheet so we can run it. So it depends on a Twitter account, and you got to get access authorized via Twitter back to the Google Sheet. All right, so let's move forward. I'm going to go ahead and say go to tags D6. Yeah, help your neighbor if they're still. Okay, so you can see, okay, tags, I'm going to allow tags to view and manage spreadsheets, connect to an external service, which would be Twitter. So we'll allow that. So I'm already connected to Twitter, so you might have to log into Twitter. Okay, I'm sorry. These different steps. So I say yes. So there's two authentication steps. So I'm going to say, when I get to the Twitter authorization, I'm going to do the easy setup, which means I don't have to have API keys. Custom keys is when you register APIs with API key. You read your application with Twitter, you get API keys. But I'm going to do the easy way. I don't know. Sign in with Twitter. Yeah, it's a lot of clicking. I'm sorry. Authorize that. It's going to redirect me back. Success. All right. Now you're back here. Let's fill in the rest of the form. So you put in a hashtag here. So let's do phone. And here you can say filter count. This is like if the term is being spammed a lot, you can set a minimum for the followers for each, because there's a lot of fake Twitter accounts out there. Let's say 3, so Twitter account has 3. And then I'll just leave the rest. And then you go, did it not? Oh, run now. Sorry. Run now down toward the bottom. Run it. Running script. So you can't run now, I think, unless you do that authentication through Twitter and connect to Google Sheets and so forth. So, what is it doing? So if I go to archive.
Tim, if it says you don't have access to tags for Google Sheets, is that an issue?
Probably.
Tags for Google Sheets to continue, but I'm logged in with both Twitter and Google. So, and it's running, so.
Okay, let's see if you produce anything. There we go. So I clicked on the second sheet, and you can see it populated within not too long. And all those ones, the text is your tweet content. And then you can see all of them should have Hong Kong hashtag. The one thing I was confused about, I need to look up, it didn't give me geo coordinates. I think I remember having that succeed previously, but yeah, so you get, basically each tweet, you can run this. So I've had students run it multiple times, have multiple sheets, and then they want to kind of merge them together because there are limits, once you get back. But that's an easy way to build a Twitter Corpora, right? Corpus. Which one is right? I don't know. Corpora or Corpus? Corpus. They both sound fancy. The other thing you can do, if you go back to this settings, once you have that, so if you set up your sharing right in Google Sheets, and that means you want to change from private and publish it on the web, save. Right? Done. Then you can do like this tag explorer stuff. So it's going to load your sheet data now, and you can kind of play with it. Kind of crazy. So that doesn't really tell me much. It's not really. But you can say, who are the top tweeters? Come on now. It worked earlier. There it is. So YVN is 191 is the top tweeter. Click on that, you can see the tweets that they produced. You can look at the top conversation lists. Explore the data. So it's kind of a nice interface for getting familiar with what the Twitter API will give you. You probably, from this step, you go, well, maybe I need more data viz, and I have to switch to R or something, so I need to do something different with it.
So now that you've shared it, like anybody can get those data through TechSE, or so basically, could you explore what other people have looked at with this, like on that website?
No, I don't think that exists, but I don't know. There might be. Yeah, that's a good question. And then this other thing is just, I think gives you a searchable interface, so you can plug in that top user and see what else they've tweeted. But the nice thing is this spreadsheet. So if somebody came in to the data, they say, how do I extract all the hashtags that are along with my hashtag? So I want to know the associated hashtags. And so that was kind of fun because we wrote a little Python script because she had a lot. She built up a pretty big data set. So we pulled out all the hashtags, some string manipulation. So that's kind of, yeah, so beyond that, it's kind of would be up to you if you find this useful. I think it's good for when you're first starting with Twitter and exploring what the data object is, and then deciding if this is the right path for you, or are the tags that you're interested in available. Any questions? Do people do it?
That was great.
Pretty easy, right? And that's it. And I'm almost on time. All right. Thank you. Any questions before?
So I think one more question so you were mentioning that you can go to the library if we like want to explore ways to like get access to data, but I'm also wondering, can you also provide some feedback on what ways they're like on basically navigating terms of service? So basically,
yeah, we can.
Okay. So because that's a big issue because in terms of, like who's got time to like read all the terms of service, and I guess like you all are the experts or like at least for experience with like getting access to data. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, basically that's if there are terms of service issue, you can come. We're going to help you with that because we've seen a lot of different cases.
Yeah.
And we've seen people breaking terms. So we know. Yeah. So it's definitely something that's part of what we do. Yeah, so the run of things we can do, we can help you. Well, now the fall will help you. Even now, will help you publish the data. If you have to write a DMP, we can help you with data management. Part of some grant application. We can help you collect the data. You know, we won't be writing any surveys for you, but we'll help you use the data after you get it, or find data that you might not know about. Help you with your code. So even if your code gets, a lot of times people say, oh, I need high performance computing, but some of it is like your code can be more efficient, right? So we can help you with that, help you learn R, Python, do some basic data visualization. So all that stuff is what we do. And then, in the fall we'll have UCLA Dataverse, and I hope you all will deposit your data. We get a DOI, a legit data citation for it, and so that would be another option too.
One question, you were talking about birth and death data. Does the library have access to California birth records? Birth certificates?
Oh, probably not birth certificates. We might have. Yeah, I don't know. Come ask me. I don't know. We might.
Social Security numbers.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'll come ask later.
Yeah.
How do we change the time frame and the copy of tags page? Just kind of do it like the last page or page or something.
I think there's a drop down for the number of days. It's only going to give you 7. There's a 7-day window.
Okay, yeah.
So you can do.
Can't change it.
You can 6 or something 5.
18 each time.
Yeah, you can't do beyond 7 days. Unfortunately. Still got a long way to go with my. I want to do. I mean, 6 o'clock this morning, man. That's some rate limit, just so you're aware. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much.